Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table. Hi everyone, welcome to my craft table. I'm making a miniature wreath card in this video. I'm using a stamp set from Avery Elle, and it comes with a little wreath frame stamp, and then it has lots of embellishments and sentiments that go along with it. It's going to be a side folding card, 5.5 by 4 1/4. I'm selecting a piece of pattern paper here as a mat for my craft paper, and I'm cutting that down to 5.5 by 4 1/4 as well. I'm using my handy little paper trimmer to trim that down. Now I'm going to be trimming down my craft paper. I use this kind of paper a lot, I really love it, and I'll be trimming that down to 5 1/4 by 4. I'm going to be using a circle faux stitch die to cut a window out in all 3 of my papers. I usually end up giving all of the little cutouts that I'm not using for the card to my daughter. She just loves crafting with all of the odds and ends that I have left over. I have to run each paper through the Big Shot separately, and I'm just marking with a pencil where the next cut needs to be. I'll be able to align my papers, and it'll make a really cute frame for the wreath. This will be a really fun card because you'll be able to see some of the wreath from the front of the card, but when you open it, you'll be able to see the whole thing, all of the flowers and the details. This is what it will look like once it's all assembled. I'm pulling out my mini Misty next. I just love this tool, my favorite tool that I've been using lately, and it has its magnets stored on the back so I never lose them. I'm going to stamp and then emboss my sentiment on the bottom of my craft paper. I have a pretty happy birthday stamp here. I'm just positioning it, and then I'll close the door on the Misty, and then the sentiment will stamp right where I want it to be. The Misty tool often saves my projects. I ended up stamping the sentiment twice because the first time it came out really pale. So I'm inking it up here again and making that a little bit darker. I'm drying it here, and now I'm going to be adding some Versamark ink. Before I apply that to the sentiment, I'm going to be using some anti-static powder. That prevents the embossing powder from sticking where I don't want it to be. It's a step that for some reason I often forget. Now I'm coming in with the Versamark ink, and it's just a sticky ink, and applying that over the top of my Java Bean brown ink. The embossing powder I'm using is a Simon Says Stamp Ultrafine Antique Gold. I found this heating gun among my husband's collection of tools, so I kind of borrowed this from my husband so that I could use it on my heat embossing projects. It works just great. Here's the fun part, watching the embossing powder melt and turn bright gold. Now it's time to pull out the stamps and start inking them up. I'm going to use my mini Misty for this as well, even though you could easily do it with just an acrylic block. I'm using the Java Bean dye ink again to ink up the wreath form. The paper is the Nina Solar White cardstock 80 pound that I'm using here. For the flowers and the birds, I end up using Ranger dye ink called Black Tie. I end up stamping this twice. I'm using my Prisma colored pencils to color in all of these images. For the frame of the wreath, I used 2 different colors of brown and a yellow to brighten it up. My wreath is going to be covered with flowers, but it was just fun coloring it in. It's very relaxing to sit down and color. Since the images are so small, I didn't worry about shading them. On the larger flowers, I did use 2 colored pencils that were similar in color to give it a 2-toned look. I think next time that I make this card, I'm going to find out the recipient's favorite colors and color most of the flowers with just that color scheme in mind. For this card, I used a huge variety of colors. I used a lot of different colors of green for the leaves. There are a lot of different leaf shapes in this set, and so I tried to be consistent with my green colors on coloring each leaf shape the same color. My kids love using these colored pencils as well, and I'm happy that they love to color, but I find that I have to go on a lot of pencil hunts before each project where I'm going to be using them. Then I have to get out my pencil sharpener because they're all dull, so I do tend to go through these pencils pretty fast. They are very fun to play with and they blend very well. I have the dies that go along with the stamp set, and I'm going to be using some micropore tape to tape them into place. There are a lot of little pieces with this set, and it's kind of like playing a matching game, trying to figure out which piece goes to which stamp. Once I run them through the Big Shot machine, these dies leave little white borders, and I love the look of that. It really makes the colors pop. This micropore tape is great to have on hand for projects like these because it's not very sticky and it doesn't tend to rip your paper. You can also reuse it a few times before you have to throw it away. Here's all my little pieces ready to assemble. I'm taping down my craft paper onto my pattern paper, trying to line them up exactly. Before I adhere it to the card base, I'm getting out my thin twine. I'm going to tie this around the top of the card a few times and then tie a bow. You almost need an extra set of hands to do this part. But once you have your bow in place, it really adds a lot to the card. I'm showing myself tying the bow here again, only this time I'm using craft tweezers to hold the twine in place, and it makes it a little bit easier so that you can tie the bow without the twine loosening. I'm using my tape runner and I'm just running right over the twine. I'm using a lot so that my card will stay together with all of these layers. Now I'm going to glue down my wreath frame using some multi-medium matte glue. I'm centering it in the window, and then I'm trying to be careful so that doesn't shift while I glue it down. Picking up one side at a time so that I can get the glue underneath. And now I can start adding my flowers. Before I glue them down, I'm just kind of placing them around the wreath. I taped down my card so that it would stay open for me while I do this. I ended up using every single flower that I colored in. I just couldn't resist. Now I'm attaching the little birds. You could also stamp a sentiment in this window if you wanted to, but I love how the little birds look in the window of this card. Now I'm coming in with my Wink of Stella and adding a little glitter to the largest flowers. Thanks so much for watching me put this fun card together. If you'd like to receive emails when I post another video on my blog and YouTube channel, please subscribe. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button. Until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Bye!